everyone, and welcome to our very second Spill the Art Tea episode. My name is Eamonn.
And I'm Josh.
That's Josh. Good evening, Josh, or good morning to you, of course.
And good evening to you.
Thank
and
you.
Welcome, world.
We are here to talk about all things art once again. And how exciting is that? Were you happy with last week's episode, Josh?
I think we spilled some tea, and I think we've got some good tea to spill this week as well.
We have a lot of tea to spill this week, and I'm hoping that you'll all come on this journey with us as we spill that tea and get things moving. So today we have a very special guest. Her name is Lucy Lambe. She is based in Ireland, and we are very excited to have her on the show. Are we ready to bring her on?
Yay!
Lucy, welcome to the show. Hello, Lucy.
Hello!
Hello, well, how are you lads? How are you?
Lads.
How are you lads?
Are you from the country?
I'm up from the country.
Lucy, thank you very much for joining us today. Are you ready to spill some tea?
I am.
Good. We'll get to know a bit more about you in a second, Lucy, as we look and talk about your work later on in the show. But right now, we're going to go and have a little look back on what we had discussed last week. So let's go back to our wonderful King Charles III. And this is what has been updated in this saga. What do you think?
I love anybody that combines two things that drive me crazy at the same time. That's a fantastic smash. And here we have the folks that believe somehow like damaging artworks in museums are going to change the world's mind. And one of the worst portraits of the king ever. It's a great combo as far as I'm concerned.
And what do you think?
I love it. I love it. I think it's great.
So since this painting has been released and all of the scandal that has come with it, or not, or just the publicity that has come with it for the artist really, Jonathan Yeo has definitely got his fair share of publicity from this. But there has since been a new portrait that was created and painted by Hannah Uzor. And this was featured on the cover of Tatler as a homage to the Princess of Wales. What do we think about this?
Well, the internet has certainly had a fun time with this one, pointing out that it looks like someone who is like a beginning art student at an art school and not really reflective of the princess. And like, this is not about she's ill, nothing about any of that stuff, but this is a really horrible way of putting somebody out on a cover, I think.
Oh dear, I mean that's brutal in its very own sense. What do you think, Lucy?
Well, I love to see the royals look awful because I'm not a monarchist at all. So the worse they look, the better for me. And I think both of those are pretty cool.
I think this is a really interesting thing, though, that I think they've all just got on the bandwagon of painting portraits, and I don't understand what the big deal is right now. But there was a really interesting line that was said about it. He said that Uzor said she went through multiple sketches to correctly capture Kate's expression and chose to paint her in Jenny Packman's gown because it was physically striking. And I mean, like, she's physically striking anyway, but I mean, does that really evoke striking to you?
Is the goal of a portrait to give you an accurate representation of someone or a sense of what their soul is? And the best defenses I've seen of the Tatler cover, the best defense has said it captures the soul of Kate, even if it doesn't accurately represent her.
Let's leave it with this, but there was this other line that was said, and I found this really interesting. Can't remember the source, but sure, who cares? I do, but sure, there you go. It was that you clearly leveraged this opportunity to use all the leftover red paint in his entire studio. And in all fairness, there are worse takes on Kate Middleton out there, so let's keep things in perspective. I mean,
2 years! 2 years of red! 2 years of red!
2 years of red. Back to Charles. I just will go back to this for a real quick second. This is very funny. It's no Mona Lisa, though. It's no Mona Lisa. Okay, so let's go back a little bit. So, what we're
spill the tea
today? We are going to spill some more tea. That tea has definitely been spilled, and we're just going to potentially close that red tin of paint now and move on to something a little bit more interesting. So, there was this new installation that was installed in Ireland and in New York. Let me show you some imagery.
Now, Lucy, when you think of Portal, what do you think of?
Well, not that anymore. I mean, it's fabulous. But really, to put it where they put it, they were asking for trouble. It should have been in a nice grassy knoll near Westport somewhere.
I don't think it would have mattered where
really
you
funny.
put it. But people,
And it's hysterical. I love it.
the artist has said he was expecting to bring out like the best of people. Like, what world are you living in? Anything you put in public, at least in the United States, is going to be defaced any way it possibly can within seconds. So why would you expect people not to start mooning the other half of the world if they're given the opportunity, right? Like,
I probably would.
I think you make a good point though, Lucy. Like, why did they not put it in, like, Ireland is such a beautiful place with so many wonderful places to go to that are in, like, the more rural areas with the more, like, the stunning landscapes and everything, and where there would be still people, like, walking and, you know, having adventures too, and yet you just put it into the centre of Dublin City, and, like, that's just, maybe it's just city to city, but, like, I just don't understand why everything always has to be in that built-up zone. So, I mean, this portal, there was this image, which was so welcoming and lovely, and you can see, oh, hello, look, and it's like, we love Dublin, and everybody's like, you know, throwing us back to Fáilte go dtí, here. And now, then it transitions to this. And, I mean, what exactly did they expect? I mean,
I bloody love it. I just think it's the best.
like, and certainly not even the most profane of images that I found on the internet when I was doing some research on this. There are some very explicit images that were sent through, and I suppose that's why it was shut down.
a typical New York subway has the range of humanity doing the range of things. So why you would expect putting a portal in the midst of public space in New York would not give you the equivalent of this every time, everywhere. I think the artist was just hoping for something that doesn't exist in humanity, which is that art will somehow create people to become something they're not. This is who people are. This is exactly who people are.
Yeah, this is real. This is how people react, and it's in lots of ways it's marvelous because it's showing what people really are like.
Yeah, but the artist shut it down because he didn't like how people were, right? And now they put in these new things. You can't touch the screen. People are further back from it. They've just added a series of rules, which makes it, to me, much more didactic. It was already didactic, hoping people would rise to their better selves. But to then keep conditioning the rules, to me, once you put art in public, it's the public decision what happens next.
Absolutely. Once you put your piece out there, it's nothing to do with you anymore.
No, absolutely. And it's just like it becomes down to this whole idea of putting a shield on things and making sure that everybody is protected. And yes, that is important, but at the same time, if it's art is supposed to be open to interpretation, open to interaction, and open to the freedom of speech and freedom of what we want to be part of it. So I think it's just really interesting how it was shut down so quickly and why it was the artist that made the call and more so than the public, which I thought was quite interesting. I actually didn't really know that. I thought it was the public that shut it down.
No. Many artists are afraid once they go out into the public sphere from the gallery or the institution setting, right? There's a loss of control. Mm-hmm. You have to let things happen. And that scares a lot of people because they don't have that control.
Well, I think that's that tea spilled. So let's move on to the next thing. So before we do, I just wanted to give you a quick insight to who we are. We are Nua Collective, a visual art community who's home to 20 artists and hundreds of their artworks with fresh work added weekly. Our Nua journal featuring articles and podcasts are also available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And our beautiful publications that are printed highlighting our collaborative collections are also available for sale via nuacollective.com. Blackout, our international touring exhibition, is currently showing at the Eli Centre of Contemporary Art in New Haven until June 2nd. Do follow us on Instagram and TikTok and like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss us spilling all the RT in our weekly roundups every Friday. So, what are we doing? We are liking, we are subscribing, we are going to share all of this with all your friends and family. How cool is that?
Share us with 3 friends before this podcast ends. Help us out.
Spread that
Help
word.
us grow.
Help us spill that tea. Okay, we're moving swiftly on. My goodness, we're baiting through it today, Josh.
Absolutely. Let's keep going. I got more to spill.
Okay, what are we spilling next?
So, some people, I'm sure, are aware of Damien Hirst's notoriety going back now multiple decades, right? Mm-hmm. And last year, he had gotten himself into some trouble with backdating some of his larger sculptural pieces that he's done in formaldehyde. And now he's gotten himself in trouble again by backdating more than 1,000 works. Not just backdating, but also definitively done by his assistants several years after the dates that are going on to the pieces. And this, of course, raises the issue. Is art dated to when you have the idea, or is it dated to when you actually do the work? Hirst claims, in a kind of sort of vein of conceptualism, that when I came up with the idea, that's why I'm backdating these things, because I came up with the idea for a cow in formaldehyde many years ago. Or I came up with the idea of the dots several years before we actually put them together and distributed them to people.
I think what's amazing, firstly, is the scale and the vast amount of these. There's 10,000 of these paintings that were produced. I think most of them now are sold as NFTs or are distributed as NFTs. Am I right in saying that, Josh?
So this was part of a project where you had a choice. It was originally produced as a physical object and then converted over into an NFT. And when you bought it for $2,000 a piece, you had a choice. You could either get the NFT or you could get the physical, but you could not have both. Mm. And what he then did was literally incinerated any of the physical copies that people had converted to NFTs. So this was a couple years ago now, right? Remember when NFTs were big and everyone believed that digital currency was going to change the world and therefore NFT art was going to somehow make things wonderful. Well, it did for people, $50 million for that particular piece, but this is Damien burning many of those 1,000-odd pieces.
And it's interesting how that has become almost an installation piece in itself, in how he has burnt the pieces and made that almost ceremonial. Yeah. But it's quite cool that did become part of the art process, and that did become part of what the art piece became. But then I suppose that's not really the point about what we're talking about here. So, yes.
Does anyone doubt Damien Hirst's ability for spectacle and performance? I don't think anyone has that doubt at this point in time. The real controversy is, wait, not only did my assistants do this work, but they did it several years after the work is actually dated. So you're buying something dated 2016, and we know definitively it was not physically created in any shape or form until 17 or 18. Right? And this wasn't a choice of like going NFT and then to physical. Everything started physical, and then some of it ended up as NFT. So there's a real screw up with the timeline here, and one could argue that's what he wants too, because it just creates more controversy and creates more buzz.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a real soft spot for Damien Hirst. To me, he can do no wrong, and I think that doing this is just more publicity because everything he does creates a stir, and this is just another thing, and I think it's great.
Yeah. He certainly managed to create for himself, he's like a rock in the art world, right? You have to go around him, but you can't really go through him because he's big enough and he's got his own studio. He can do whatever the hell he wants. He's set for life.
And he's not the first artist that's got other people doing his work for him either.
It's not to say as well that, we've experienced this only last week in our previous episode where we spoke about the spectacle, from what Catalan did in the vast scale of work that he's created, but only to kind of make an impression. And I think Hirst has been probably the person who started that, the artist that really kind of wanted to push that out there, that you can put a bazillion diamonds onto a skull and then call it art and put it in a gallery space and say, here you go, this is worth bazillions and you need to pay for this now.
Well, if what you're interested in is ending up on the auction block, right, then you want to create as much buzz as possible for the kind of people that are going to go to those auctions and spend money. And if I have a choice between an artist that constantly makes buzz and an artist that doesn't, well, I'm going to get a higher return on my investment if I invest in the artist that's making that buzz. And that's Hirst. Boom, boom, boom.
Absolutely.
Well, he's made a career out of it, so, we can't do him wrong.
And even his controversy, he sold 1,000 of these at $2,000 a pop, right? That's millions and millions and millions of dollars.
I think fair play to him for doing that. And maybe we should all be taking a little bit of a leaf from his book to try and see how we can be more capitalist in our artistic endeavors to try and actually earn some money out of this whole artistic.
Would be nice.
Wouldn't it? We are only the poor lowly artists after all. Just need to spin ahead on that and change the perspective. And I think that tea spilt. Thank you, Damien Hirst, for bringing that to the table. So another little slight segue we have this week is our $1 million masterpiece. So here we go. This is our $1 million masterpiece this week, and it is by Felix Gonzalez-Torres, called Entitled, which is original, of course, and it sold for $16.6375 million. And while it looks like a series of twinkly lights on a string of what could be, the Christmas decorations for 2025, 2024, I'm a year ahead of me, that would be a very expensive set of Christmas lights, don't you think?
It's an interesting thing. Gonzalez-Torres is known for not really being so much of a gallery artist per se. He's known for like the candies piles that people can grab and they get replaced. And a lot of it ties back to the 80s problems that were going on with AIDS and the art world's reactions to that. And so this piece, I believe, is meant to sort of like souls lifting up to the air, right? Yeah. Everything that rises must converge. And I just think it takes this issue of like, what does the art world want to pay for? It wants something that's new. It wants something that looks different. And other people have worked with light, but if you did it first, or if you've established yourself, your name, we're just talking about this with Hirst, you establish your name, and then whatever is tied back to it, certain kinds of collectors are going to pay extraordinary amounts of money for that. For something you could order on Amazon for $15.
You need the name with it, though, don't you? So, I mean, I'm pretty sure I've seen this in a museum recently, and I suppose when you walk past it and you go, oh, look, there's some twinkly lights, but then when you read about it and you see who it's by, it makes you stop. And if it's worth $13.6 million, well, fair play to him.
Yes.
He's been working hard enough for long enough.
It is the context, though, that makes such a massive difference. And I think we spoke about this even yesterday or last week when we were talking about the banana in the gallery, and how all of those kind of interventions within gallery spaces can make such a huge impact on what it is we are calling contemporary art practice. And I think what's really being achieved here, with just in spite of my defamatory towards it earlier on, is that like when you start to talk about that subject matter, it does open up a whole other idea. And it's kind of like while you were talking about the people who suffered from AIDS and who had died from that awful illness, that they can also kind of translate that to other people who may have died because of their own personal illnesses or their own personal grievances in their own life journey. So I suppose it is quite transcendent in that way as well, and how we can kind of push that forward to other ways of thinking. So yeah,
it opens your mind when you see pieces of art like you said, just twinkly lights on a string. But it kind of opens your mind. It broadens your mind a little bit when you realize what it's about, who it's by. You go in and you find out about him and his other pieces. I think that's what this sort of thing does. I think they're great.
Well, we also, in our modern world, there's a collapse between the image of a thing and the reality of a thing. And, right, at a certain point, what you're paying for the physical object is the reality of that thing. And yet most art propagates in today's world via image. It does not propagate via physical. And it just raises this issue again and again. I think it's the key thing that most artists have to address, which is if you're going into a gallery or institution, that's a very different context and a very different audience. And what is it you want your art to do? If you're trying to touch people, well, being sold for $13 million, that kind of flies in the face of what Gonzalez-Torres would have been trying for in the first place. But as we said, artist intentions mean nothing, particularly in the context of the commodity object space, because it's what people are willing to pay for that determines the value.
Absolutely. And I think we'll leave it there, because that's that tea spilled. Very good. Okay, cool. Right, let's move swiftly on. So we're going to go into talk a little bit about Lucy. Lucy, this
That's me.
in your prime at your Green Sheep studio, and there is lots of activity that's been going on in the Green Sheep studio. Lucy, would you like to tell us a little bit about what's happening there?
Yeah, I've been running projects in the studio. It's right next door to my cafe, so I'm kind of running both at the same time. And I was doing an artist in the shop window project for 3.5 months, where I had a different artist in the window working away, and it was an open house type of thing, so passers-by could either look through the window or come in and chat with the artist. So every week we had a new one, and it really went well. People loved it. And I was in the window a lot as well, because it's, you sort of pop in when people can't make it and stuff. And it was a really interesting thing, because as the weeks went on, more people were coming in to watch the process. And it wasn't about the end result like a gallery. It was watching artists work and talking to them through their practice and process. And we had schools and, groups come in. And it was a really... It was a really interesting thing to do and to observe as well, and we had exhibitions and all sorts going on. It was great, so that's why I'm sat in the window for the promo, because it was called Artist in the Shop Window, so I thought I'd slap myself into the window for a photo.
Very cool. And what I thought was really interesting about it is I know the area because it's my hometown, but having a open studio like you did through a big massive window, just like you would see in any shop window, to a very rural environment, a very regional town with people who wouldn't necessarily appreciate art, or at least at the very most conceptual art, or art that would be a little bit out there. And we all know that you like to kind of push some of those boundaries, and I think that's really exciting, because it exposes people to show the possibilities of what art is and what it can be. I think that was really exciting. So let's move swiftly to one of your pieces, and I think this work was actually exhibited in this space only a few weeks ago.
Yeah. This is a series of drawings that I've done of St. Bridget, but she's reimagined. So Ireland is really into St. Bridget, and it's the 1500th anniversary of her death, apparently, this year. So I decided to reimagine her doing stuff that she's never been seen doing before. So she's pole dancing there with her nipple tassels and her spurs on. There's pictures of her having a mammogram. There's drawings of her. She's auditioning for Cirque du Soleil in one of them, and she's being dangled upside down. That's the mammogram one. That's actually been taken by an anthology called the Red Cow Anthology. It's a book full of artwork and poems about St. Bridget that's being published in October. And she was Ireland's first abortionist as well. So there's 2 drawings of her. First of all, she was holding like a bottle of gin and some coat hangers and some herbs and things. And somebody objected, and I had to take it. It was taken off Instagram. So I gave her 2 bottles with the Plan B drugs in instead, and nobody really copped those. So she's a bit of a heroine to me, because she was the first abortionist. She was actually cogitosis wrote about her about 100 years after she died, and there was a nun that kind of fell off the wagon of not having sex and got pregnant, and she arrived with her little bag of herbs, and she wasn't pregnant anymore afterwards. So she was a good one.
So you've thoroughly modernized her.
I have thoroughly modernised her. She's covered in HRT patches in a menopause clinic. She's having a mammogram. She's at one point she's having a smear test. She's having her legs waxed. She's squeezing spots. She's doing all the things. Yeah, plucking whiskers out of her menopausal chin. All of those things. So there's 45 drawings of her doing some weird stuff.
And you can check all of those pieces on, well, at least some of them on the Nua Collective website, and we'll share lots more over the coming weeks as well. But there is another piece, and I'd like you to describe what this is.
Well, this is called Grind, and it's a durational performance piece, and it consists of a faceless body, just your normal kind of barista person who you don't really notice, grinding coffee. Only he ground it for 5 hours. With a few breaks because my coffee grinder overheated a few times. But 12 kilos of coffee beans were ground, and as they were ground, they were just put out into the cup you can see there, and it all overflowed onto the floor. And it's about waste. It's about the waste of consumerism and capitalism and all of those things. Now, it wasn't me in the morph suit because I've had 4 children and I'm 55, and me in a morph suit wouldn't look great. So I put one of my friends into the morph suit when he volunteered to just stand there for hours grinding coffee. It actually worked really well because I had it mic'd up to speakers. So as he ground the coffee in an exhibition full of all other pieces of work, it just filled the whole space and drowned everybody out, which I thought was really cool.
And the smell, I would imagine.
Literally.
And the smell was amazing. And I got all the coffee was donated to me from the guy that I buy my coffee for the shop.
Oh, cool.
So that was cool. So we got through about 12 kilos of coffee during the performance, and it was all spilt on the floor. And it was lovely the way you see it's kind of come up to a point in the cup. So it just, that point stays the same and it just falls each time. And as I say, the action that he did was the same every time. He leant down, he got the coffee, he put it in the grinder, ground it the same amount of time each time. So it was a kind of a meditative performance as well. So
Great.
yeah,
It's really cool, and it's great to see the multiple different ways that you work and how you use so many different media, so many different techniques, introducing the performance, introducing the drawing. There's and I know that you do lots of photography and film work as well. So I mean, it's great to see that you are using that interdisciplinary approach to your practice.
I love performance. Performance, I really, really enjoy performance because I'm a bit of a show-off anyway. I think last year I did a performance where I did a Catholic mass in a nightclub, dressed as a priest. That was good fun. And I dressed up as a granny at it was an outside gallery. And everybody I was a 1970s granny, and everybody that came in was treated like my grandchild, whether they were older than me or younger. So they were told to sit down, and they had a glass of Ribena, and they had to play Operation or Connect 4 while they were given, a fairy cake or a scone. It was really good. It was really good fun.
Nostalgic, I'm sure, for most people involved.
It was, and I looked exactly like my granny, which was really weird.
That's
Yeah.
cute, though.
As I sat topping and tailing gooseberries. Yeah.
Well, Lucy, it has been absolutely fantastic to have you on the show with us today and to talk about your practice and to hear your views on all of the art class that we have had. I'm going to try my little sound effect now, see if that works.
Wow.
Oh, no, it's wow. We got wow.
Yay!
So,
Well, thank you very much for having me.
you're very welcome, and we hope we have you on quite soon again on the show in the future when we spill more tea on Spill the Art Tea here on YouTube. And
Don't forget to like and share. Don't forget to tell your friends.
tell your friends, like and share, and make sure that you send this out to all of your friends and to whoever you like and whoever you don't like as well. Can't see no point. And we will be here next week at the very same time at 6:30 p.m. and 10:30 a.m. in Pacific time as well. So
Next week is Janine.
Janine,
Week is Janine Brown. Come and see her next week. Come and spill some more tea.
excited to see Janine and excited to talk to you again, Josh. Until then, check us out on nuacollective.com and we will see you very soon. Adios, amigos.
Bye.
Thank you,
Adios.
folks.